Welcome to the Family Bible Journey. Whether you're a first-time listener, one of our regulars, or one of those who is committed to either reading through or journaling through the Bible with us, thanks for listening. This is episode 127, season 1 of the Family Bible Journey New Testament podcast. Today we're looking at John chapter 13, verses 21 to 38. The title of today's podcast is, "And It Was Night." And our key verses for today are, in the spirit of this Last Supper discourse with Jesus, the entirety of chapter 13, verses 21 to 38, where we read, "After saying these things, Jesus was troubled in his spirit and testified, 'Truly, truly, I say to you, one of you will betray me.' The disciples looked at one another, uncertain of whom he spoke. One of his disciples, whom Jesus loved, was reclining at table close to Jesus. So Simon Peter motioned to him to ask Jesus of whom he was speaking. So that disciple, leaning back against Jesus, said to him, 'Lord, who is it?' Jesus answered, 'It is he to whom I will give this morsel of bread when I have dipped it.' So when he had dipped the morsel, he gave it to Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot. Then after he had taken the morsel, Satan entered into him. Jesus said to him, 'What you are going to do quickly.' Now no one at the table knew why he said this to him. Some thought that because Judas had the money bag, Jesus was telling him, 'Buy what we need for the feast,' or that he should give something to the poor. So after receiving the morsel of bread, he immediately went out, and it was night. And when he had gone out, Jesus said, 'Now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God is glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself and glorify him at once. Little children, yet a little while I am with you. You will seek me, and just as I said to the Jews, so now I also say to you, where I am going, you cannot come. A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also are to love one another. By this, all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." Simon Peter said to him, "Lord, where are you going?" Jesus answered him, "Where I am going, you cannot follow me now, but you will follow afterward." Peter said to him, "Lord, why can I not follow you now? I will lay down my life for you." Jesus answered, "Will you lay down your life for me? Truly, truly, I say to you, the rooster will not crow till you have denied me 3 times. This is the word of the Lord." So here in the last half of chapter 13, remember this is the Last Supper discourse with Jesus and his disciples. The entirety of chapters 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17 of John's Gospel, nearly a quarter of the Gospel, are dedicated to this fateful and, as we see in our reading today, frightful night for Jesus and his disciples. We were tracking Jesus' use of that Greek word ora, or hour, and saw that his hour had come here on this Maundy Thursday when he was approached by the Gentile believers. And here in chapter 13, verse 30, I have a very odd, for me at least, highlight in that I have boxed, "And it was night," in black. In John chapter 9, verse 4, just before healing the man born blind, Jesus said, "We must do the works of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work." Here, Jesus tells his disciple that night has come, and it indicates for us the time when Satan's time has come to execute his plan to slay the Son of God. Even Peter, the rock, is going to falter and fall during these fateful hours. It is night, and in order for God's plan to be accomplished, Jesus is going to have to fulfill the work that the Father has set him to do from before the beginning of time. He is troubled. We saw him weeping at the grave of Lazarus when he was confronted with the grief of the mourners. Here again, he is troubled in his spirit, according to verse 21. Troubled because of what he is going to do, but also, I would dare say, troubled because it was one of his own, Judas Iscariot, who was going to betray him. Satan, we are told in this passage, enters in to Judas. Now, I don't know exactly what that means. All I know is that it's really bad, and that he is going to become the tool Satan is going to use to have Jesus delivered into the hands of those human beings who are intent on killing him. And here, I want to share a very important note for you in order to help you to understand how it is that Satan works. Because Satan's greatest genius, I might argue, is that he never does his own dirty work. He always gets someone else to do his dirty work. And we see this playing out here in the person of Judas Iscariot. And we're going to see it continue to happen throughout the rest of John's gospel as the Pharisees and the Jewish religious leadership, Pontius Pilate, are all the Roman centurions going to be used by Satan to do his dastardly deed. But in slaying the sinless Son of God, Satan overextends himself. Like a poker player who overplays his hand and then God calls his bluff. Somehow Satan thought that by slaying the sinless one, by murdering the author of life, he'd win. But instead, he ended up orchestrating his own demise. And Jesus allows what's happening here to happen to him because he has come to serve our greatest need, and that is our salvation, our eternal salvation, because it is only when he, as both the Son of God and also the Son of Mary, a human being, perfectly fulfill the will of God, that his sacrifice is going to be complete. And so the final act in this play, which on the one hand seems a terrible tragedy, as Jesus does not deserve to suffer and to die in the ways that he is going to suffer and die. But on the other hand, is a beautiful comedy, as Satan ultimately gets what he deserves and ends up being proven the fool for thinking he could thwart the purposes and the plans of God. And so we see this comedic tragedy playing itself out as Jesus allows the darkness to descend and for Satan to have his evil day, so that ultimately the purposes of God may prevail as he completes his life's work for you and for me. A couple of tips and tricks for those of you who are really into the Family Bible journey. If you'd like to binge maybe just the Old Testament or the New Testament episodes, if you go to our page on Podbean, you can sort our episodes based on Season 1 for the Old Testament or Season 2 for the New. And regardless of the podcast player you use, you can always sort the episodes from oldest to newest. That way you're listening chronologically with us through the Bible if you're one of those ones who's committed to either journaling or journeying with us through the Bible beginning to end. Our blessing for today. When life is dark and cold, may you live in the light and love of Christ. Amen.